We are learning a jury has been selected in the trial of the first officer charged in the death of Freddie Gray. Let's get right to Justice reporter Paula Reid. She joins us on the phone right now with some new details. Paula, what can you tell us about the jury?
Well, Anne-Marie, after 2 days of going through a huge jury pool of over 150 people, the judge has just seated a jury. There are 8 black jurors, 4 white jurors, and it's skewed female. There are 8 of the jurors are women, 4 of them are men. Now, each side had a certain number of strikes that they could use to eliminate people, and there was certainly an effort on both sides to take out anyone who is a young male, regardless of race. Now, each of the young black men that came up before the sides were stricken. So each of the 3 black men that are on this jury, they're older. They're all over the age of 50. The one young man, who's a white male, who was on the jury was actually the last option. Everybody was out of strikes, and he was the next one up. So that's how he got on the jury. There are also 4 alternates. As you know, we need alternates in case anything happens to the individuals on the jury. There are 4 white males, all over the age of 30, and 1 older black male. So we have a jury, and we're hoping to get the oral arguments this afternoon.
Paula Reid, I know you said that there was a clear indication that both sides was trying to strike young men from the jury. Why would they want to do that?
Well, I think they worry, on the one side, they worry that they may have had, some sort of adverse interaction with law enforcement, but sometimes you don't know, because there were some questions that were asked at the jury over the past few days about whether or not they'd ever been a victim of a crime, whether or not they had any interactions with law enforcement. On its face, it just appears that the 2 sides don't believe that these young men will be favorable to their case. But there are also some questions that these individuals may have answered behind closed doors with the judge that we don't know about. So they may have some additional information about these men that we don't know. But there was definitely an effort to keep any young men, regardless of race, off the jury. So we have this jury that skews heavily female, and the few black men who are sitting on the jury are all over the age of 50.
You mentioned opening statements should start later on this afternoon. What are we expecting to hear?
Opening statements are so important because it allows each side to lay out their theory of the case. So the prosecution will lay out their theory of why they believe Officer Porter was complicit in the death of Freddie Gray. And then, of course, the defense will try to lay out why he is not, and they'll come out with their defense strategy. Now, oral arguments can go on for well over an hour and go through 2 hours. So it's possible we may only hear from one side. Usually the state goes first. So it'll be interesting to hear the theory that sort of sets an outline for how the trial will play out over the next few days. Interestingly, the judge has promised the jurors that this case will be done by December 17th. That's very unusual, but it's for a judge to come out and say that so confidently. But it seems that he expects this to be wrapped up in about a week, which would then give the jury about a week to deliberate.
I know this is Officer Porter. He's the first officer to be charged, and there are several others that will have to face trial. What do you think here? What are the implications, regardless of the verdict in this case?
It's very huge, Jamie. I mean, they're starting with Officer Porter because they believe this is their strongest case, their best chance at a conviction. And State's Attorney Marilyn Murphy really needs a conviction here to convince the city that she didn't overcharge these officers. Now, regardless of the outcome of this trial, each of the other officers is probably going to try once again to get the case moved out of the city, arguing that Officer Porter's trial got so much attention, there's no way they can find an impartial jury here in the city. We'll go through that whole process again. But this judge truly believes that this is what the jury process is designed to do, to weed out biased jurors. So the implications for this trial are huge, not just for the other officers, but for the city itself. So we have a jury, now we'll hear opening arguments, the evidence, and then the jury will make their decision about whether or not Officer Porter is guilty.
Yeah, Paula, of course, I think anybody who has lived in Baltimore is aware of this case. They're aware of the unrest that occurred afterwards, but this jury is not going to be sequestered.
Exactly. They're anonymous. So that's why we describe them based on their race, their sex, and their age, anything I can sort of discern from across the courtroom. But you're right, they won't be sequestered. They'll be allowed to go home. They won't have any work or deliberations to do on weekends. He's promised them that. But the judge asked all 150 people who showed up over the past 2 days, are you aware of this case? Are you aware of the civil unrest that followed? And are you aware of the civil settlement that Freddie Gray's family has entered into in the city? Only one person in that entire group was unaware of the civil settlement. Every single other person here was aware of the Freddie Gray case, was aware of the settlement, and was aware of the civil unrest. So it's not that these people are unaware of what's going on and won't be aware of the high-profile nature of this trial. The question is whether or not they can be impartial and hear the evidence and come to an unbiased conclusion. So certainly everyone's aware. That's probably why the judge isn't sequestering them. They all know what's going on. But, now the trial begins. They certainly can't talk to us, but they can go home and eat dinner with their families every night after trial.
Oh, indeed, with their families. I think about social media. We'll see how it all unfolds. Paula Reid, thank you so much.
Sure thing.